Welcome to Behave Yourself, the podcast that aims to bring the science of human behavior and how you can apply it to your own life and become the happiest, healthiest, and most successful version of you.
We're two behaviour analysts with backgrounds in personal training and nutrition who've struggled in the past with confidence, weight loss, breaking promises to ourselves, and constantly trying the quick fixes.
We bring the science and show you how to apply it confidently and consistently towards your own goals and how to actually create a lifestyle change.
Behaviour analysis is the science of human behaviour, and we all engage in behaviours that either move us towards the direction of our goals or hold us back from living the life we desire.
I'm one of your hosts, Emily McRae.
And I'm your other host, Jo Wesley. Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Well, I'm okay. We've chatted about it, external circumstances that are less than ideal, but I actually I'm sure you've seen me perk up over the last hour. I was definitely pretty low and tired when we started, so I'm doing better, but I'm tired. I don't feel 100%, and our current living situation is a little less than ideal right now. So
but
we're making it work.
Yeah, you're here. You have coffee
I'm here.
And you have brightened up.
I can feel the difference. So
yay.
How are you?
Yeah, I really am good. I'm in a much better place than the last time we recorded. I have given myself a really nice weekend where actually I've done loads of work and Jim's done loads of work, but it's now we feel like we're in a good place starting the week. As you can see behind me, people on YouTube, I have all of my washing, drying behind me. I've cooked a whole ham. I've prepared loads of food for the week. We've got lots of work and stuff ready for this week. So yes, I'm feeling like I'm in a good position.
Good. How have you been behaving yourself?
I think the last podcast we recorded, we were very honest. Was that the last podcast? Yeah, we were very honest about some tricky times that we were going through, and some, in particular for me, clients being interesting. And I understand that they're very stressed. They have children with autism at home, and they're very stressed about life in general right now because COVID. And so we had some difficult conversations. And normally I really, really hate conflict, and I would just back away from anything, and I would take the blame for everything even when it wasn't my fault, just to get rid of the conflict. And we had these difficult conversations, and I stayed true to myself throughout, kindly, gently, diplomatically, but eventually got round to the conversation, and both clients that were being particularly awful apologized and admitted that it was just their stress. It wasn't anything else. And they apologized for taking their stress out on me, which I didn't need, but actually was also really nice, and nice that I didn't just take it on myself to go, it's my fault, sorry, which is normally what I would do.
Oh, it's so easy to do that too. And especially just kind of avoid that confrontation. So I applaud that in you.
Which I guess would make them feel better if I'd have taken it on, but I would have walked away angry at myself, and that's not good either.
Yeah.
No. How have you been behaving yourself?
Well, despite feeling off track, I traveled last weekend to help my brother look for apartments, not for a fun trip, but it was a fun trip. But I got back and I definitely was off of my routine and my schedule, and I could see it. And so I'm proud of myself for getting in 3 strength workouts this week, because I felt so off track all week, and it showed in every way. But I still moved my body, got a really good lower body lift in one day, which just felt good and strong. And sometimes we just need those extra endorphins to kind of bring us up. So it was good. It was a good week overall, but ready for a more successful on track week with habits.
Nice. I think I said a few podcasts ago, I was planning on lifting a lot heavier, but since lockdown has gone into full force here, I'm now walking to a client 3 or 4 times a week. And it's an hour's walk there and an hour's walk back. So with 2 hours walking a day, that's gone out the window, because I ain't lifting heavy if I'm walking for 2 hours a day.
That's a long walk both ways. So I'm always impressed that you walk to work like that. So it's just not possible here if somebody lived an hour away, or like an hour's walk away. So it's a
really nice walk. I get to walk through one of the big royal parks of London for most of it. And on the way there, I get to talk to my mum and dad all the way. And on the way home, I listen to an audiobook or a podcast all the way. So I have paired that with a lot of reinforcement.
Nice.
I wear very sensible shoes. I always wear trainers. So yeah, it's fine.
Wonderful.
And I get to eat
All
more snacks.
right. It's a plus.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about ethics, which is quite a big topic. And I guess over the last couple of weeks, I've been questioning myself about this whole podcast. I think I've been questioning myself and my life in general, actually. But with this podcast, I know that a lot of behavior analysts listen, and I know that some non-behavior analysts listen. And we tell our listeners that we're behavior analysts, and we want to appeal to the masses that don't understand behavior analysis. So I keep kind of feeling like we're pulled in two directions of, I want to make sure that the information we're putting out there is behavior analytic and consistent with something that someone from the BACB could listen to and go, that's okay. But
Yep.
also that we are I don't know, not just talking in behavior analytics speak and not being relatable to everyday man or woman, because that's, I think, more who we're trying to appeal to. How do you apply behavior analysis to real life? And so with ethics, any behavior analyst will know that our code of ethics, I think, is one of the most impressive things about our field. Is
Mm-hmm.
it strict? Yes. Is it extensive? Yes. Is it sometimes a bit ridiculous? Yes. But actually, it's so good and it makes sure that we practice so ethically. I love it. And I think it's one of the
Yeah.
best things about our field. So I was going through our code of ethics and trying to work out how we could then apply this to self-management, self-monitoring, and what we do here on the podcast. And part of it was relating to trying to maybe speak to behavior analysts that want to go into health and fitness, because I started highlighting parts of the code that would be applicable to behavior analysts that want to work in health and fitness. And essentially, there were no parts that I wasn't highlighting. So if
Mm-hmm.
you're planning as a BCBA or as a behavior analyst to go and work in health and fitness, I'd encourage you to go and download the code of ethics. And I was doing the new one, the one that's coming into force in 2022, and try and think about how that would apply to your practice and how you're planning on practicing within health and fitness, and check yourself before you wreck yourself, because there's a lot of things that could go wrong there. But
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be a really dry podcast for us to go through today. So I don't think that's what we should necessarily do today.
Yeah. It's I think our code of ethics is so well rounded, and the edits and the changes that they've made in this newer version is phenomenal, and I am very impressed by our code. And like you said, there are some things in there that they've shifted and changed and modified for, I think, the better in some ways, just looking at cultural differences in certain ways, and editing in terms of diversity and inclusion. And I think it's just such an incredible document that we have, and is our professional requirement to be knowledgeable and aware of and have that information really in our back pockets.
Yeah. And finally, we can stop talking about the damn water.
Hmm. Yeah. I
So,
know.
instead, what I thought would be better to go into is more the idea of ethics around health and fitness and your own health and fitness.
Mhm.
And as much as possible, trying to relate that back to what we do as a personal trainer and as a nutritionist within behavior analysis, and see how that goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, what is ethics? I actually found two definitions of ethics. One, that it's the branch of knowledge that deals with moral principles, and the other is that moral principles that govern a person's behavior or the conducting of an activity. Morals, ethics, morality around what we do.
Yeah.
And so, I guess when I was looking at the BACBs, the Behaviour Analysts Code of Ethics. And I'm really sorry, UK people, I'm not going to refer to the UK SBA's Code of Ethics because there's already too much to talk about. But a lot of it refers to how you behave with clients and how your responsibility to clients, your responsibility to supervisees, your responsibility to the field and to behaviour analysis in general, and how you represent the board. And none of that then, because you're talking about other people, none of that relates to yourself. So I guess if you were planning on practicing within this field, it would apply. but now I'm going to try and take ethics and apply it to changing your own behavior.
That's huge. I hadn't ever realized that until you just said that, that there's nothing about ourselves and focusing on us. And I think a lot of behavior analysts, at least that I've talked to, we struggle to actually take care of ourselves and ethically set boundaries for ourselves and do what's best for us and balance the risks and the benefits of working till 1 p.m. or 1 a.m. on a treatment plan because it's due to insurance or billable hours and certain things like that. That taking lunch. I have a behavior analyst as a client that's working on taking lunch for herself. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And multiple that have brought that up to me. So,
I'm not going to be able to recite it because I'm not a walking dictionary, but there is one element within the code that talks about you report to the board if you're not able to perform services to a
mhm,
certain standard. I'm not going to be able to, I don't know what it's exactly. And so I guess, like, if you are, say, if you are diagnosed with a terrible illness and you can't perform services, you would report yourself as unable to perform services. Or if you, I don't know how to, if you were diagnosed with terrible depression, you couldn't work, then you would
mhm.
report yourself. That's the only thing I can think of that would talk about your own ability or care.
Yeah.
And I'm sure nobody on the board would ever give two hoots about my opinion. But if I could add something to the code of ethics, it would be something about your responsibility to yourself. Because we all know if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anyone else.
Yeah. It's
There we
huge.
are. Okay, so
All right.
what I did instead was look at the four kind of tenets of medical ethics, and
Mm,
we're going to go through those one by one. So the first one is a respect for autonomy. So respecting the decision-making capacities of autonomous persons, enabling individuals to make reasoned, informed choices. And so I guess from this, I took the idea that when we're making our own health choices, we make sure that we are informed and we're making a reasonable decision on what we're doing in terms of our own life and our own health and our own fitness from an informed space.
mhm.
So, not just going through Instagram and going, oh, well, that green juice worked for that girl. I'll try it out on my body. And maybe almost trying to treat your own life or your own body like you would a client. Like, that's not, you haven't looked at the evidence. You haven't
Mhm.
done an assessment. That's not a scientifically validated treatment. So, why is it okay to do that on yourself?
Yeah. That's
Um,
it's I think this notion that as adults we don't not that we don't value ourselves, but you wouldn't approach that for a child, so why we're allowing ourselves to do these approaches on ourselves, but when you would look at even if you're not a behavior analyst working with kids with autism and you're just a person, if you wouldn't do that for a niece and nephew, some of you were watching, like, looking at the effects just because you're an adult and you can make your own decisions. What decisions are you making for yourself?
right. And as a behavior analyst, there's so many steps that you would go through before making a treatment plan decision. And
Mhm,
that would be making sure that you're set up properly as a kind of the client consultant relationship, getting a contract in place, doing an assessment, making sure that you're making reasonable data-based decisions, choosing a treatment plan that's scientifically validated, taking data, taking baseline data, making informed decisions all along the way. And yet, with our own bodies and our own lives, we can just make a snap decision of, I'll try that new weight loss tea. Sure, why not?
yeah,
So that was one kind of ethical, like having ethics towards your own body and your own life, and also to the people around you. I was listening to someone talk about how they used to do bodybuilding shows,
mhm.
but not bodybuilding shows. What's the other one? Like bikini figure shows?
Yeah, I think they're yeah, they're similar in what their purpose is in a way.
Right.
Yeah.
To do prep for that, the
Mhm,
individual has to spend probably a year spending a long time each day in the gym, eating very specific foods, probably being very tired, very hungry, sometimes taking additional supplements to help them, which make you have all sorts of different moods. And certainly in the last month before you get on stage, eating almost no food and being quite a miserable human being. And so then they were talking about the ethics around doing that to the people around them. Like, he wouldn't have chosen to do that to his wife, because he is a miserable human being when he does that. And so the ethics of what you're doing to the people around you, like, do you want to go on this particular diet, be hungry and miserable all the time, and make your life miserable for your other half? Do you want to drink those slimming teas that make you have awful diarrhea, but model that behavior to your children as being something that is an okay thing for you to do? Ethically, maybe not.
Right. I think the other thing too with fitness and the safety of it and the ethics of making decisions and starting programs that your body may not necessarily be ready for in terms of a lifting program or a cardiovascular program. And we talked a little bit before about um, recovering from COVID and what that looks like for returning back to fitness. And that's a whole new realm, but there's no available information out for people. And we have a lot of people, thankfully, surviving and recovering from COVID. But what are the next steps? How do they get back to movement and back to activity, but safely and ethically for their body? And even if you're not recovering from anything, if you're just starting a workout program, is your body moving in the safest way? Are you safely progressing your weights to a higher level? Maybe, emotionally you want to jump to that next weight progression, but safely your body can't do that yet, or you don't have the correct form, even if you think you do, because it's hard to look at your whole body in a 360 like a personal trainer would. So getting that support, even though you can make that decision to increase the weight, is it a safe choice to do so?
Yeah. Which I guess brings us really nicely onto the next tenet of medical ethics, which is, I don't know whether I can pronounce this. Nope, I can't. Beneficence?
Yeah,
Beneficence?
beneficence. Yeah, somebody can correct us if we've said it wrong.
And this is this considers the balancing of benefits of treatment against risks and costs. So all treatments come with risks, but also costs of not doing it. So I don't know, chemotherapy, for example, has the risks of, it kills off other cells, it makes you feel pretty awful, it can do other damage to your body, but the benefit of it would be that it kills the cancerous cells. And so any treatment has a risk benefit analysis of which one is the more risky to do it or to not do it. And so I guess with health and fitness, or any kind of self-monitoring, self-management plan that you're going to put yourself on, do the risks or even the cost of it, like, and not the cost in terms of money, but maybe the cost of your time and effort, does that outweigh the benefits that you're going to see from it, for example? So say if you have to run a marathon every day and only eat 1,000 calories a day to achieve your goal, is that really worth losing 5 pounds? Absolutely not.
Nope.
So weighing up how much time, effort, money you're going to have to put into this thing, and the benefits you're going to get out of it, and like the values behind why you're doing what you're doing. Like, but why do you want that particular goal? Like, what does it really mean to you? How valuable is it to you?
And I think with the time, like what is the costs of it? It goes back to that kind of bodybuilding thing that you were talking about. And again, it's a little bit more mentalistic in terms of our behavior analysts that are listening, but how is it affecting your emotions? Are you really cranky and tired? And is that affecting your work and your relationships? And or is it affecting your social interactions because you don't feel like you can go out to eat with friends because you're restricting what you're eating? Or you are in the gym for 3 hours because that's where you feel like you need to be rather than studying or spending time with family and loved ones.
Yeah, for sure. And a really similar one, the next tenet of medical ethics, which I struggle to differentiate between the two, but it's very similar, is
Mhm.
non-maleficence, which is avoiding the causation of harm. So all treatment involves some harm, even if minimal, but the harm should not be disproportionate to the benefits of treatment. Um, and so I guess it's very similar, like, is what you're doing causing harm? And also with what made me kind of stop and consider with this is it causing harm to others? So like we
Mhm.
talked about earlier, what you're modeling to others, whether it's your kids or even maybe on social media, the people around you, what harm might that be causing? And I think we do need to consider that, particularly maybe you and me who have put ourselves out there as a not quite like a public figure, but like we're out there saying like we are people who know things about fitness and nutrition. Like
Mhm.
people might then look at us as someone to model their behavior off of. And I think we have to think about what we're saying and how that could cause harm to others.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about share what we share in terms of data of our behaviors or our weight or our history of doing certain, health and fitness routines of it is so different for each of us individually and everyone else that every approach needs to be for your own body and your own way that your body mechanics work and your health internally genetics. So making sure that we are sharing information, but also not causing harm in terms of even just confidence. It made me think of there was a post, probably several posts that I've always seen of moms who are negatively speaking about their body, but then their daughters are watching and it's, you're causing harm to yourself, but also to others by modeling that behavior of negative self-talk and picking apart your body image in front of your children.
Yeah, for sure. An interesting one that I thought about with this as well is some health behaviors that we often talk about could be harmful to others, but in ways that we might not think of. So I'm always banging on to people about making sure that they eat enough protein. It keeps you satiated. It's good for muscle protein synthesis. It's the macronutrient that people often accidentally don't get because maybe it's not as delicious as nice carbs and nice fatty food. But then there's the other side of it that when you tell people to eat more protein, what do they go out and eat loads more of? Meat. And
Mhm.
that is can be like if every human on the planet suddenly wanted to become a bodybuilder and eat enough meat for their hashtag goals, that would be incredibly damaging on the environment. We
Mhm.
know that overconsumption of meat is environmentally damaging. And so then, and I've tried to be more mindful of this, but talking more about other sources of protein that are less damaging, whether they're vegan sources of protein like beans and lentils and tofu, or slightly less damaging like eggs. And I'm sure I will have some vegans write in and tell me that I'm wrong. But I think we need to think about that aspect of health as well.
Mhm.
I don't know if there's a
Yeah.
fitness kind of movement similarity.
I mean, I think you can look at walking and increasing it like what you do, walking to work. It's helping the environment, it's reducing using a car and gas and looking at kind of our overall behaviors of how our health is and using resources, I guess medically, looking at the resources that are used medically for treatments that could have been prevented or, health issues that could be prevented by just moving your body and physically working out, increasing strength if you've got increased bone density and muscle strength and everything. Are hip replacements and knee replacements going to be required as often? Again, I don't know the medical background of like all the reasons why you would have those surgeries or medical necessities, but is that something that we can reduce the need for and then reduce the pressure on nurses and doctors and hospitals to actually treat things that are more medically pressing that are not preventative for health reasons?
Yes, which ties into the last medical ethics tenet, which is justice. So distributing benefits, risks, and costs fairly. And so is there morality in wanting to improve your own health? Or is there morality around not wanting to improve your own health? And particularly in the UK, and I'm open to this discussion if people want to message me and get, grumpy with me. But we have a national health service. Like in the US, the majority of your medical services are paid for by insurance. But
Mhm.
over here, the money that we pay in taxes pays for other people's health care. And so if you're choosing to not work on your health and still smoke and still drink excessively and stay obese, which has more health implications than not, it's taxes that every man and woman in the country pay that pay for your healthcare. So by not improving your health, you are taking money away from taxes that could be spent on other things. I think there is morality in that. I'm really sorry. I think
Yeah.
there is. And I think it should be a joint responsibility for everyone to work on their health and improve it. Because unfortunately, both in America and the UK, our healthcare system is not a healthcare system, it's a sick care system. You go to the doctor when you're sick. The doctor doesn't give you advice of how to stay healthy and be your healthier self. They only give you medicines to when you are already sick. So
Mhm.
really, it's up to us as individuals to maintain our own health so we don't get sick and we don't have to go to the doctor and spend that. It's a
Yeah.
group contingency, isn't it? It's
It
group
is.
money.
Yeah. And I think that's not to say that one side is better than the other. It's more like out here, over here in the US, we pay into private insurance, but we expect all this coverage and everything. Why we're expecting total coverage when we know it's on ourselves to have that care of ourselves and be able to take care of ourselves versus just expecting the insurance companies to cover everything. And I mean, it's some of their responsibility, but it's not their 100% responsibility to take care of your own body. And the UK version is definitely a group contingency that needs refinement in terms of how people approach it and look at it. But I think that's something where that knowledge and information isn't always readily taught. Like we don't think about these things when we're in school. And then you turn 26 over here and you're on your own insurance and you don't understand how that works either. So it's
Mm.
knowledge about it as
And
well.
I guess closer to home as well. Like if you, I don't know, became obese, got diabetes, had your complications from diabetes, and ended up in a wheelchair, that's then on Tom to look after
Mhm.
you. And so there's ethics around that. Like you're then tying him into a life with a sick wife. So
Mhm.
there's ethics around that as well.
Yeah.
Um, the other one I thought of was with this about kind of distributing benefits and health behaviors are very much and again this could be a whole other podcast, are very
Mm.
much a privileged thing. To be able to diet is you have to be in a place of privilege because so many families can't even afford food, shelter, all the things.
Mhm.
um, and this kind of comes into food insecurity, and food insecurity is when households lack access to adequate food because of limited money or other resources. And you'd think it wouldn't be a problem in countries like ours, but I looked it up and almost 50 million Americans, so that's nearly 15% of Americans, are food insecure. Um, and a third of those are at a more serious level known as very low food security. So the idea that we're worrying about how much protein we're getting or how many workouts we're getting a week, we are seriously privileged.
Mhm.
But so if we're planning on dieting, could we then also think, well, I'm going to work on my health and also for this factor, donate in the food bank some food this week? Like in the same way when nowadays when people take a long distance flight, they might donate money to plant a tree to offset the carbon footprint. Should we also start thinking about that in terms of health behaviors? Maybe there's ethics
Love
in that
that.
too.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point. I mean, it's such a privilege to be healthy and to be living kind of in this like health, fitness, diet, culture, lifestyle, even to be going to the gym and doing that, or working out from home, having internet access and doing an online workout. That's a privilege. So,
Yeah. And could you somehow share that with people that
yeah.
aren't? And then the last couple of ideas I had was, we know from organizational behavior management, or OBM,
Mhm.
that group contingencies and group feedback don't work, because the people, so say if you've got a group of employees and you give group feedback of, none of you are cleaning up the office area well enough and this part of your work isn't good enough, the good, in inverted commas, the good employees will hear that and get very anxious and think it's their work that's wrong, even though it wasn't them that's done the wrong work. And the
Mm.
employees that are responsible for the crummy work won't hear it, and they'll just assume it's someone else.
Yeah.
And then I was thinking, trying to relate that to health and fitness. And I think that's so often the case, where the messages that we see on social media are often heard and interpreted by all the wrong people. So the people that see the messages about body positivity and eating intuitively and just loving your body and eating whatever are probably heard by all the kind of people that maybe don't need to hear it, sorry, but
Mhm.
maybe they just use it as an excuse to stay comfortable and stay where they are. Whereas the messages of, it's just a calorie deficit, you need to eat less and exercise more, are also heard by all the wrong people who probably need to eat intuitively and just love their bodies
Yeah.
a bit more. And so we know group contingencies don't work, which is what would come back to then working with someone knowledgeable who can do a proper assessment, who has your actual kind of individual circumstances in mind. They've done an assessment, they'll make a informed decision because they're very knowledgeable about what they do, instead of just taking blanket statements from social media, which then, and I realize we're running out of time, and this could be a whole other podcast, brings me on to the messages we put out
Yeah.
on social media and why we put them out. And I'm just going to say this as one last statement. If you have on your profile that you are a behavior analyst, a BCBA, and you are putting out statements with that on your profile, you need to be really careful about what you're saying.
Mhm.
And being honest, if you're getting kickbacks from a soap company about advertising soaps, but you've also got on your profile that you're a BCBA, I think there needs to be a statement in there along the lines of, this has got nothing to do with me being a behavior analyst. This is not, I'm affiliated. I'm getting paid X, Y, and Z for doing this, and being very transparent about it, because being in a position as a BCBA, people will look up to you as a source of
Mhm.
knowledge. And we are known for being scientific. And actually, your Arbonne subscription or whatever,
Yeah.
it's not that. You are just getting paid a percentage of it.
Yeah. It's a big we could definitely do another episode on this for sure.
And I
And
think
maybe
we
we
should.
will.
Like, I
We
hold up my
should.
hands and
Yeah.
say that I used to be affiliated with Beachbody,
Yep.
and I
Same.
never sold a single program because it just felt so icky to me.
Yeah.
But so I think we should do a whole episode
Yeah.
on why you and I didn't really stay with them for long and why not.
Absolutely.
Because it's icky and I don't think it is
Yeah.
ethical.
Yeah. I love it. But I loved this episode. I'm excited for it to come out.
Yeah, me too. Anything else you want to add?
I think that's all.
Nice. Okay. Where can they find us?
They can find us on Instagram at Behave Yourself Pod. You can find more from Joe at The Behavior Lady, and you can find more from me at emily.a.mccrae.
I have a new website.
You do. That's
Well,
right.
there's a holding page up now, but by the time this episode comes out, there will be a website. So
Mhm.
if you want to hear more, it's thebehaviorlady.com.
Look at you with your nice little
Yay.
tag. I've got lifesimplifiedcoach.com, which seems very long now that I say it out loud, but here we are.
Yeah, I was advised to get behaviourlady.com because it was shorter,
Mm.
but it cost about £5,000 more to buy that domain. So I went for thebehaviorlady.com.
I think that's worth it.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah. You
Okay,
can also email us at behaviorselfpod@gmail.com. Send us questions, comments, episode suggestions. We'd love to hear it.
for sure. And the Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you mentioned that?
Behave Yourself Podcast on Facebook.
Nice. And there we do kind of weekly challenges,
Mhm.
weekly education, all the lovely things.
Yeah. We're
Okay.
adding some new stuff starting this week. Well, this will be released in the future, so it'll have already been released, but new stuff this week in terms of our recording weeks. So,
Yeah. A quick disclaimer, we're both behaviour analysts and qualified in our respective fields, but this podcast is for education and information sharing only and shouldn't be taken as personal, medical or behavioural advice or services.
wonderful.
And we'll see you next time for a podcast on reinforcement and punishment.
Yay. All the good ABA basics.
Yeah. All right. See you next time.
Bye.